heart infection. Okay, what's the question?
The question is, what's the one thing that you would advise the youth to focus on during this time?
At this particular time, I would want them to do research. Number one, learn how to develop a skill set that makes you more valuable in the marketplace. As we can tell just right now that the world economies are shifting, right? Everybody's on a global lockdown. The government essentially is taking over the treasury. And so what you're seeing is that regardless of what happens during this time, the world will never be the same ever again, right? Now, what you focus during that time, what are your most valuable and essential skills? You understand me? What would make a human being valuable in this new world and age and time? And so it's the same thing that I've always been telling people to focus on, which is mindset and skill set. When you think about developing multiple streams of income, a lot of times they always told people, don't be polymathic, don't span in many different skills, don't, focus on too many different things at once. But in this particular time and age, those people who have those multiple skill sets are the ones who are more comfortable than a lawyer, more secure than a doctor. You understand me? Because if you're relying on one thing, regardless of how good that skill is, you're vulnerable in this new economy. When things shift over to one world systems like 5G and AI and even cashless systems where it changed what is value, right? We've been taught to chase money for so long, we never knew how to chase value, the thing that money buys. And so, I would just study. Like, this is a great time to observe, study, and collaborate. The more people you can collaborate with, the more power you have. You understand me? Like, collaboration used to look like a luxury. It's no longer a luxury, it's a must. So each person should observe, study, look at their skill set and what they value is. So are they great writers, thinkers, imaginative creators? You know what I mean? Like, think about not figuring out what jobs will be available, but how can you create your own job? You know what I mean? So I would think about that as number one. How do you marry your skill set so that you can gain capital? And how do you develop yourself to update the current time reality and not be left behind to the old world system that you were fighting when it was time for you to go put yourself in debt and go to school to get an education that you can't even utilize right now to get yourself out of debt? So think about what the world will be, not what the world was. Number two, of course, like I said, collaboration is key right now. The more people you can collaborate, the more access you all can give each other and the more power and value that you have. I wouldn't so much think about how you all can exchange money between each other and just circulation of the dollar, but how can you really give each other access to your resources? Because the access to each other's resources is what actually gives us the wealth in the first place, because it allows us to afford opportunities and to produce things that normally we couldn't afford. So that collaboration evens the playing field. That's what we're seeing with the governments. The governments are collaborating in world shutdowns. They're collaborating in world economies and one world systems of dollars and digital assets. So that's what 5G is. The Internet of Things is a collaboration between all devices. So when you think about preparing for the next world, and not even just for the young people, but for all people, either you adapt or die. It sounds harsh, it sounds bleak, but the reality is the new world social distancing, of course, is between the powerful and the powerless. You know what I mean? Not even just the poor and the rich, but those who have power and those who have value. Too many people have lined themselves up, started a job, chased a career, realizing that these things are not really purposeful to you. Even a lot of people that thought that they found purpose in them right now, they've had time to reevaluate, reconstruct what their idea of life is. And so when you really get time is one thing that most people never get to experience in their full production. Like time itself, like now what people have essentially is time, right? When you go to jail, they say you got some time to do, right? Because you don't have nothing but to live life in that time. So in life, what you try to do is you try to figure out, how do I do something with my time that is of value, right? And so productivity increases over time when human beings increase in knowledge and productivity, meaning that the more knowledge that human beings have, the greater ability that we have to push economies up. You know what I mean? Because we start to produce more, not just consume more, right? So everybody should be thinking, how do I become a consumer? How do I be like Nipsey, right? How do I produce something? How do I own a supply chain? How do I go into essential needs and essential businesses, right? And then, of course, look, you know, I don't want to scare nobody. But the reality of it is everybody won't make it. You know, some people really fought to have businesses and they really so happy. And when you're forced to change, some people don't want to, right? We have homeostasis. Some people have an inability to change and move forward and progress in life. So regardless of what business you're in, make it malleable, keep your mind malleable. Stay ready to pivot and turn. Like, people won't go to the stores anymore the same way they used to. People are going to want to have access to where they don't have to be in large crowds. This social distancing has mentally, or rather psychologically, messed people up. You know what I mean? They don't want to be close to each other. What is the new club? You know, what is new social interaction? We know what social distancing is, but what is the new social interaction? That's why I say study, study, study. Anybody that just tells you, you know, exactly what to do, they don't know what they're talking about, because things are changing so rapidly. You have to wait till the cement is wet first to know what the world will be. But at the same time, this is the opportunity. You get to write your name in that cement. So regardless of when it dries, you are part of the new world structure. So I would think about, number one, how can I increase my skill set? How can I become the best observer to see all of the opportunities that exist around me? And then at the same time, who is going to win the most? Who is going to be my age, going through the same exact thing, but thought of a great goddamn idea for this new world? How did they do it and I didn't? How come they were tapped in to that infinite flow of solutions and I wasn't? That's that fifth dimensional, intuitive, psychic connection that we all have to be processing at a higher speed, collaborating, giving each other access, and creating one world systems that are unified and not just talked about. That's my thoughts.
You have some more questions?
Hell yeah.
So you mentioned adaptation. How would you advise people to embrace AI? And if so, how would you say they should go about navigating?
Embrace it as a tool, not a master. You know, all things can be used as a tool and can be used for good. Everything has the ability, money, power, sex, guns, everything can be used for a good. It depends on who has them. And so it's like, yeah, there's people that were afraid of every invention that comes out, right? But are you a god? Can you tame it? Can you learn utility of it? Technology and social media are terrible masters, but they make great slaves, right? And so the goal of, I believe, the diaspora is to figure out, how can we utilize this for our empowerment to push us progressively? How can we take the ideas of these algorithms collecting data and retarget each other for creating power structures, right? How can we give each other access that normally we went into everybody else's circles, but how can we steal that information and bring it back to the gods? You know, so that the AI essentially can be used to make us more effective. And we haven't seen the needle move long enough. Like, if we want to bridge the wealth gap, we might just have to use AI. You know, like, we might have to use AI. And I was talking with my bro Idris Sandu, and I was saying this, and this is a free idea, open source for anybody to be able to take it and implement. For one, when we go ask a question on Google, so let's say if a young man asks a question about masculinity on Google, right? Now, what pops up in that, right? Everybody's mind is there, right? And whoever has the greatest SEO, then their mind is at the top. And so what end up, they consume that content, and then that becomes their constructed thought of what masculinity is, and they may filter their behavior and define themselves and express themselves based off that. Okay, so let's say if Google is a collection of who has the most money and everybody's consciousness that can manipulate that, well, we need a system to where all our ancestors' minds are plugged into an algorithm, right? So when you ask a question, the only thing that pops up is the black thoughts. So now you know exactly where you're pulling from. Are you pulling from your ancestors or your open enemy's ancestors? You understand me? So if I get to type in there, the diaspora, And it pulls up links and questions and cross-reference ideas from Elijah Muhammad and Marcus Garvey, you understand me, and Noble Drew Ali, and of course, however many other ancestors that we have that are great into this think tank. And then we say, now we can see what the world would be like if we ruled the world. Because right now we can only experience the world based on white supremacy ruling the world, right? Based on Israel ruling the world. So what would it be like if our generation, the next generation, only pulled from our ancestors? Because I mean, shit, who else we need beside ourselves? So I think when we think about AI, that can be an idea of utility, because it's just a tool. It's nothing to fear. We only fear things we don't know. So yeah, these children should be learning coding. That should be a second language. They should be bilingual in coding. You understand me? They should be trilingual in multiple world languages. So yeah, that's my thought. We tapped in, y'all. That's a high level conversation of questions.